is, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. And I further bear witness that Muhammad, peace and prayers and blessings be upon him, was the last and final prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. All praises due to Allah, all praises due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, all realms. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. God is greater. God is greater. He is greater than anything that we can possibly place our minds on, any subject, any solid thing, any spiritually based vibe, anything, any possible realm that you can conceive of anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater. And he's greater. He shows us this consistently through his magnificent signs, through the signs that we see on a daily basis, regularly, repeatedly, throughout history, within our own selves, within our neighborhoods. I mean, limitless signs, limitless signs. And it is our duty to heed these signs, to pay attention to them. One of the signs that occurred to me is the tree. And this is an old, I mean, the tree is used over and over and over. When you think about a tree has always been somewhat of man's companion, humankind's companion. We had trees in Jannah prior to earth, right? We had heavenly, righteous trees. We had, and then we had one that we were supposed to stay away from, right? And then we have trees here, which do a magnificent job for us, right? They teach us, in a way, they teach us how to really be. They provide for themselves, and they provide for everything else that is within its realm, within its reach, and even further. I can go through the list, right? Trees, you know, they hold the soil together, they give produce, they give off oxygen, you know, all of these things that we need to live, to produce fodder for our cattle, help the produce flowers for bees and pollination, and the list goes on and on. But the one thing that I do want to point out that trees do is they allow us to see the they allow us to break our basic perception of time, right? When you plant a seed in the ground and you pour a little water, and Allah talks about this, how he cracks the earth, right? He puts cracks and crevices in the earth, and he brings rain. And out of that rain, it seems that magically up sprouts a growing thing, right? A thing that is a productive thing. And there was a question that my children used to, when they were smaller, they used to try to ask the question of, how does the seed, right, turn into something that is real? How does it grow? How does it, you know, you see this small seed and then you put it in the ground. And some people think that it draws so much nutrition, that it's drawing solid things from the earth in order to sprout and become this extremely high, that tall, I mean, heights of extreme heights. You go into the redwoods, extreme widths. So all of this matter, how does this matter comes from nothing? So the truth of the matter is that the seed does not take most of its nutrition from, I mean, it takes nutrition from the earth, but the building of the root, of the stalk, of the leaves, of the branches, it comes, what it does is it pulls the sunlight, right? It pulls the sun, the rays of suns, and the sun hits it, the earth, in so many different ways. Don't want to get into that, right? So it pulls the rays of sun, it takes the water, and it takes what we give, CO2, carbon dioxide. And it takes all of that and it does this beautiful magic, and it turns those things, sun rays, we can see them, we can see the light, but you know, they're not solid, can't touch it. CO2, we can see it, but we can't, it's not a solid matter, right? Right? So CO2, water is the only thing, it's a liquid, right? It comes down in the solid. But it miraculously takes those components, and with the instruction that is already in its own DNA, right? It tells the cell has already been instructed to take those three things and make what? Like miraculously, like magic, it makes matter. And so from that one seed, you can't see the matter that's coming down, but you see a little water, and then you see something grow up and it sprouts up to something small, you know, a little sprout, and it grows up and it keeps pushing. And all of this matter is just miraculously appearing, right? So this is one of Allah's signs to show how miracles are real, right? And the other sign, the other thing that you can pull from this is that we can't conceive things through our perception, right? Our limited perception. We see what we see. So if we were able to break ourselves down and see the actual production of that cell and what it was doing and how it was creating matter, we might get a little better understanding of it. Or we might be able to say, oh, okay, I can see that with my own eyes. Or if we were to sit and watch that thing grow. Have you ever, if you haven't ever done it, go check out, I don't know, some channel, for some nature channel or YouTube, and watch them fast forward plants grow. It is absolutely amazing. These things that we think are just standing still and not doing anything are moving like people, right? If you really look at the plant grow and it's moving, you will see it almost has its own character. Like it's climbing up a fence, it's choking out another plant, the vine. It's like real, it's like watching the show, you know, different people, different characteristics. So, but we don't see this if we just look in this one frame of time, right? We just see something sitting there, put a seed in there, saw water. But when we look, if we have the capability to look quickly through time, then we can see that movement. We can see the production. We can see the growth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this as a sign for us to respect the limitation that we had in our perception, but also to respect the unseen, right? Those things that we can't see working, to know that even if you don't see it working, it doesn't mean that it's not working. What you perceive does not mean that it's not always an accurate perception of what is really there. So trees give us they're a wonderful sign for us to observe and to reflect on. With that being said, inshallah, I want to jump right into one of the surahs that I wanted to share. And before I go into it, the surah is Al-Basa, surah 80. He frowned. Most of us know the story behind it, but I'll give a brief story. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was trying to persuade some of the richer, wealthier, more prominent people to trying to share Islam to them with good intention, right? He was on a mission to move this thing, to share this wisdom. And as he was sharing, an older blind man came up and interrupted, right? Which some people might have thought was, it's rude to come up and interrupt. And he kept interrupting, right? Trying to get his attention, asking for the wisdom. Some people say he was asking for, hey, is it okay if I sit here? There are some people to say that he was asking other things. But he interrupted and he asked. And the Prophet, because he was so intent on trying to get this rich man to convert to Islam, to better the cause, he got annoyed. The expression that he gave was an expression of annoyance, and he frowned and he turned away from him and kept talking to the rich person. So immediately, but right after that instance, then this surah was revealed. So I'm going to read a small portion of it, inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. The Prophet frowned and turned away, because there came to him the blind man, interrupting. But what could tell thee but that perchance he might grow in spiritual understanding, or that he might receive admonition, and the teaching might profit him. As to one who regards himself as self-sufficient, to him dost thou attend. though it is no blame on thee if he grow not in spiritual understanding. But as to him who came to thee striving earnestly and with fear in his heart, of him wast thou unmindful. By no means should it be so, for it is indeed a message of instruction. Therefore, let whosoever will keep it in remembrance. As usual, I really want to read the whole. It's a short story, about 40 ayats, but I have to stop a matter of time. So this surah gave us wonderful these ayats, right? These are signs for us. Gave us wonderful understanding and one to recognize that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a man, right? He had flaws. He had emotions and feelings. He got irritated. He got disturbed. The other part is that he is also one of the highest the highest form of being that we have in record, right? That we want to replicate what he does. We want to be like Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. So how could he make this mistake? Like I said, one, he was a man. And then two, for a moment, he was focused on only his mission, right? But he was focused on his mission with only his perception there. He could not perceive. Prophet Muhammad didn't know who had a good heart. You know, he maybe got a sense of it, but only Allah knows what's in each one of our hearts, our souls. All the Prophet knew is that, man, these people always talking about these, but only people that follow me are the blind and the leopards and the lowest of the low. If I could just get this guy, if I can just get him to come into the religion, while he's the leader of such and such tribe, and then he comes with tens of thousands and lots of inspiration and lots of support. So he was thinking in a righteous way of moving the deen, but he was thinking only with the perception that he was given at that very moment, right? So he was thinking with that at that very moment. And in doing that, it gave just enough room for Shaitan to slip in. Just enough room. So the lesson that we can learn in a simple sense is that we have to be conscious that whenever, even if we are doing something, a cause, we are pushing a drive, we are doing something that we think to be righteous, we have to be conscious that we are following, that we are checking in with Allah consistently. Because Shaitan doesn't take any breaks. That's his job. We talk about the Allah, I've mentioned this before, when Allah showed the earth to the angels, and before he put the devil or Shaitan on there, and the angel said, who can go wrong in this world? It's so beautiful, mashallah, who can go wrong? And then when the Shaitan was placed in it, who can go right? Right? So same circumstances, different situations. Place that element of the Shaitan that is meant to come in here and distract you, and if you're not conscious of it, he will do his job. That's what he does. And if he can do it to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, then he most definitely can do it to us. He most definitely can do it to us. So the Prophet was reminded in this surah that he slipped up, that even his understanding of his drive to push this deen, which is a righteous drive, that he allowed the perception of this world for 1 minute make a decision which pulled him away from what he knew to be the perception of what he knew to be the lifestyle of Islam. Because this is frowning and turning away is not the character of the Prophet, right? And as a matter of fact, there's even people, I don't know if the Shia, I don't want to name them. There are people who believe that this surah wasn't talking about the Prophet. It was talking about people who are around the Prophet, because they say that the Prophet's righteousness was so much that he wouldn't have done that. But there is full of evidence. I shouldn't even brought that up, but there's lots of evidence you can read and research, and you find yourself that this was Prophet. This was directed to the Prophet, peace and blessings. If you read in the ayats alone, they tell you that it's directed to him. So this was not of his nature. This is not something that he regularly did. This is outside of his nature. But in that small moment, in that small little crack, that crevice, it allowed for him to fall off, even as the prophet of Allah. And we've seen this with numerous prophets, right? And this is not the first time the Prophet Muhammad fell off, right? There are other instances where he made mistakes, right? So the point is that we have to be conscious to make sure that we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the emphasis where I stopped is that ayat 11, it says, by no means should it be so. For it is indeed a message of instruction. So this Quran he's talking about, what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was sharing. It's a message of instruction. Therefore, let whoso will keep it in remembrance. And the whoso will, a lot of people, when they talk about this, they talk about that it doesn't matter whether or not you're poor or rich or whatever, everyone should be given the message, right? But let whoso will gives the choice to those people who receive it. So the message is out there, it's being delivered. And you have to allow for whoso will to take that message, those instructions, and to live off of those instructions. So just like the tree, our bodies as well, physically, our cells are given instructions to do exactly what that cell is meant to do. And it's really magnificent because we have different kinds of cells that are informed and instructed to do different kinds of things. And it's funny because if you were to, just like we said with slowing down the time, if you were to actually look at it, you would think that those little beings are little bitty people making decisions, that they are, when they're cooking up whatever they're supposed to be making, that they are doing those things. But these are instructions. So I don't want to go that far. We don't want to say the tree, who knows if the tree has a spirit? There's a hadith, there's a story, I don't know if it's hadith, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to preach or used to talk under a date palm tree when he gave his khutbah. And then they built him, the people said, oh, we want to build you a minbar. Oh, I think that's what it's called, right? Build you a minbar. And they built him one, and they moved him away from the tree. And when he went there that Friday to give the khutbah, people would have said they heard the tree crying, right? The tree was like whining. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went to the tree and hugged it, the first tree hugger, right? Hugged the tree. And he said that the tree, horrible, I'm sorry, all this paraphrasing, but the tree was sad because he wasn't receiving or having the knowledge being taught next to him. So there was a lot that goes in. I mean, we can reflect about trees and so much. There's a lot that goes into that. But for us to remember that the instructions, going back to our instructions within us, just like the tree, it gives us those physical instructions, which means just like we can sit and watch a tree grow over time, we can be mesmerized and amazed with watching a child grow, right? With watching a mother becoming pregnant and her womb grow, and then to push that out. To if we looking at that one moment, we don't see a lot of times the magnificence of it if we're just stuck in that one period of time, that one perception. But just like us, just like the tree, if you look at a person, they grow. Our children, they grow. Their bones extend. Matter comes out of. It's a little. We put matter in our mouths. We eat solid food. The tree doesn't do that, right? It takes in some nutrition, mostly water and sunlight. But we still can watch that thing grow. We can see our human bodies grow from those little instructions that are naturally, physically placed in our body. But we are one step above that. As humans, we have choice. We make decisions, and Allah has proven that in the Quran when He presented us to everybody and said, "I have taught him something." It's like, oh no, and we told everybody the names of things, right? And Allah gave us choice. He said, go roam freely. Don't touch that tree, but you can have all the rest of the trees. You can eat from all of the rest of them. But He left that open for us to make a decision whether or not we wanted to or not. So if we have choice, while we're growing physically, we have instruction. But if we have choice and we have thinking critical thinking abilities, then we need to give ourselves instructions in our brain. We have to give ourselves instruction. And this is what the Quran is. The Quran is instructions for the spiritual soul, instructions for the thinking being, for the person that is submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not just physically, but spiritually submitted. If we don't continue to look at those instructions, then we won't be producing like we're supposed to be producing. It'll be easy for somebody to, give us some misleading instructions, or for us to look around and say, oh, they're doing it that way. Well, I might as well just do it. And that's a real caution, because that is the nature of humankind, to follow what the crowd is doing, that crowd think. But if we don't go back to the instructions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, if we don't allow for the Quran to correct us, right, to check our minds, to check us, then we'll end up being something else, producing something else, even with good intention. Even with good intention. Because if it happens with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, it most definitely can happen with us. And so, how do we get that instruction? First step is we read, right? This is the instruction right here, the Quran. Allah has blessed it. And as a matter of fact, if I read the rest of it, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, this is ayah 13, it says, it is in books held greatly in honor, exalted in dignity, kept pure and holy, written by the hands of scribes, honorable and pious and just. Woe to man what hath made him reject Allah. Sadaqallahu alayhi. Stop there. Just a description of what that instruction is, and how beautiful it has come to, and how we should appreciate it. So it's for us to take the instruction and do like our organs are naturally doing, like our cells are naturally doing, like we find all of the rest of the trees to do, but to do it with our spiritual sense, with our souls. Because if any crevice, the shaitan, he has his instructions and his consciousness, and he has his natural niche, or whatever he has, and he's going to do his thing. So for us, we need to make sure that we are staying focused on what our produce should be, and how we should be moving out in this life, how we should be moving on, how we should continue living as a spiritual being and not just a physical being. And that means that we have to crack the Quran. We have to read it daily. We have to study it, not just read it. We have to study it. We have to hold it dear to us, as if it is that thing that's going to grow us. And we have to have faith in what it can produce, even when we can't see what the production might be. That being said, inshallah, may Allah continue to keep us focused on him and holy him, and place him first and foremost in all of our endeavors. And may Allah continue to keep us in his instruction, and keep us conscious of the instruction that he has for us, and that we are always willing to follow that instruction. ربنا آتينا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. All praises due to Allah. All praises due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. I want to wrap up this khutbah by just sharing well-known hadith. I'm going to read the entire hadith, then I'll share the part that I want to talk about a little bit more. This one is forgive me, I don't have the history behind it, but it's a hadith. I didn't print it up. It says, one day while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in the company of some people, the angel Gabriel came and asked, "What is faith?" Allah's messenger replied, "Faith is belief in Allah, his angels, and the meeting with him, his apostles, and to believe in resurrection." Then he asked, "What is Islam?" Allah's messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "To worship Allah alone and none else, to offer prayers perfectly, to pay the compulsory charity, zakat, and to observe fast during the month of Ramadan." Then he further asks, what is ihsan? Perfection. And Allah's messenger replied, to worship Allah as if you see him. And if you cannot achieve this state of devotion, then you must consider that he is looking at you. Then he further asks, when will the hour be established? And Allah's messengers replied, the answerer has no better knowledge than the questioner. And I'm gonna stop there. It goes on to talk about the signs that the day of judgment or the hour is approaching. So this was, and at the end of the hadith, basically, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, told him that was Angel Gabriel sent here to teach you your religion. And so what he was sharing was, we got the 5 principles, right? We have the 5 pillars, we have the principles, and those things that make up what Islam is. What I want to focus on for just this small piece is the ihsan, which is perfection, right? And this is for us to act, move, speak, and talk as if we actually physically see Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's not, we don't want to get all crazy with like a face or anything, but to see that Allah is there. I mean, how much of a difference would you be if you knew every moment that Allah is there? Like if you saw Allah in your face. There are some people that think that when the lights are out, they can't see, nobody can see, and they do all kind of crazy things, right? But Allah doesn't need light to see, right? He doesn't need that. He creates the light, he creates the darkness. When you're in the car and you got some in your nose and you decide to just reach in there because you think nobody sees it, right? So even in those moments, Allah sees you there too, right? He's very conscious of everything that you do. So if we were actually to think that to act and respond and to move and to make decisions and to talk to people and treat people different ways as if we saw Allah at all times, that would be perfection, right? But we're still human. I don't want us to think that if we make mistakes, we have to understand that Allah is also the most merciful, that he forgives over and over and over. And as long as we ask for forgiveness, then we're in a better predicament. Then we just keep on going on with the sin or whatever mistakes that we made. And Prophet Muhammad said, and if you can't even vision, because it's hard, right, to try to say that you see Allah. Although when we're talking about the signs of Allah, in the sense that we become aware that Allah is there because through his miracles, through the signs that he shows us all the time. There are some people who say, and they do it erroneously, they'll say, we worship the cow, we worship the tree, or we're not worshiping the tree, we're worshiping the God in that tree. They're doing it erroneously, right? Because God is, if you want to say that, God is he created. We don't say he created everything. But we can see those things and the creation that he has, and it's given us proof that Allah exists. So in a sense, dare I say it, it's almost as if we see Allah, right? The other part, the weaker part of that, if we can't do that, is to just be aware that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you at all times. And that's something that we should always be conscious of. Again, we would move differently if we were conscious of that. We would move differently, and hopefully we will be more righteous if we were conscious that Allah is always watching. But there are some people, and hopefully it's not us, who are aware, who aren't aware. There are some people who have that shaitan in them, right? Or who have not submitted fully, right? And they may not be aware of that. We don't want to be one of those people. We want to be conscious of what, that Allah is always consistently there, that he is always watching us. And if we do that, we can move better. We want to be conscious that those things that we don't see, we want to be conscious that and submit to those things that to Allah, even though we can't see it. And even the miraculous, the things that we think are miracles, because we can't see them, they give us proof that the unseen exists. That our perception is not as grand as we think it is. That we have a limited perception, so we are not going to see everything. But we want to be conscious that that unseen is there. We want to make sure that we are conscious of that. And if we do that, then we can become the producers that we were meant to be. we can be more like Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And we will be able to know the importance of keeping that direction, that instruction that Allah has given us close to us. We will keep it close because we know that that instruction is a life or death situation. That everything that we do is not just about this point in time, but it's really about the hereafter, right? So we have to think about that in this hadith. It mentions not just believing in Allah, right? Faith is believing in Allah, in his angels, in his apostles, in the day of resurrection, right? So believing that there is an end to your life. You got to believe that you're going to die. Believing that you will be raised up again. Just like Allah says, he raised you up. You know, just like he takes dirt and puts it there and puts the seed in there and it raises up again. And sometimes it'll sit barren and quiet for a long time that you think it's dead, but he raises it up again. So we have to believe in the end of times, believe in the hereafter, believe in Allah, believe in his books. And believing in all of this is not just saying, I believe, right? It's actually taking these things and putting them to use, taking this understanding and applying it consistently to our lives, like our cells do. Our cells don't stop doing the instructions that they give it. It don't stop doing that. We should be constantly engaged in an instruction that we have been given. We should be constantly striving, remembering the hereafter. Thinking about, people hate to think about their death. Thinking about our death. Waking up today, and I know it sounds a little morbid, hey, I might not make it today, you know? So what am I gonna do? What if I don't? Have I done enough? Asking those questions, because that's a reality. We see, and then it's a sad reality, but we see it daily when we look in the news. We see young people dying. You don't have to be 65, 70, 85, 95 to pass away. We see babies pass away. There is no definite time that we have. So if we can keep that conscious, that's really believing in the hereafter and knowing that Allah is going to hold us accountable and knowing that Allah is going to keep us, reward us for the good that we do. So keeping all of those things constantly in mind, keeping all of that as a reality, as if we see it in front of our very eyes, as if it is, when I wake up, I see, oh, I might die today. You know, oh, what did I do? Did I take care of X, Y, and Z? You know, oh, there's angels watching me. Allah is watching me right now. You know, even though I'm up here doing whatever I'm doing, right? Allah is watching me. Oh, let me pull back. You know, easier said than done, I know. But this is part of the prescription for us. And this is part of the instructions for us so that we can strive to reach perfection. We may not reach it, but we can strive for it. And if we do that, then inshallah, Allah will be who he said he is, which is the most merciful. And he will forgive us the mistakes that we make. He will forgive us, just as he was forgiving the prophet for the mistakes, the small mistakes, just as he's forgiven so many people. He tells you what he will and won't forgive. So inshallah, Allah will bless us to be consistently thoughtful of him, conscious of all those things that are unseen, conscious of the day of judgment, of his angels, of his prophets, of his revelations, and to be conscious of our job here, that we are here not just for the here and now, but we are here to produce for now, but also more importantly, to produce for the hereafter. So may Allah continue to keep us focused and keep us always submitting to him, and may we always be under his mercy. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawassaw bil haqq wa tawassaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Come to salat.